So, Kanwal Akhtar, thank you so much for coming on to our Hustle and Heart podcast today. I am excited to dive into what you have been working on. It's an amazing application, but there's just so much more to you as well that I want to cover. As you know, Hustle and Heart is about helping entrepreneurs, inspiring them, helping them grow. And hopefully people will kind of take some nuggets out of this conversation today and be compelled to try something new for themselves. So let's talk about your hustle and your heart in terms of what you're doing right now. So let's start with your new passion project, which is called Daira.
Yes.
So why don't you just introduce yourself first and tell us a little bit about Daira?
Thank you so much, Doreen, for inviting me to your podcast. I love the name. I love that it's it's exactly how entrepreneurship is supposed to be like, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do the hustle if you don't put your heart in it. And you're absolutely right. Daira is a passion. It started off as a passion project, but now we're hoping to launch it very, very soon. We are in talks with a lot of people. But before I go into that, a bit about me. By profession, I'm an educator. I'm also a business consultant. I've worked a lot in learning and development as well, in the learning and development space as well. So developing educational programs for not only students, but also for the workplace, for organizations who are looking into training their employees and just improving their learning and also improving the overall environment at work, just making them perform better. So my past 14 years have been working with business strategy, but more than that, in education and with learning. And that's where I just felt as an educator and as someone who's worked in the learning space in all kinds of learning environments, be it classrooms or in training rooms, I just felt we're missing something with learning because you develop some of the best materials for learning, but you're never able to achieve the best results. I feel that I've always felt that with learning, the learning provider and the kind of scenarios that we're in with learning environments, we are forced to adopt a very myopic view when it comes to learning. And we just focus on academics or we focus on the learning material. But through Daira, which is a learning management app, it's an edtech app, and we hope to kind of give more power, give more control to any learning provider, allowing them to set up whole learning environments for their learners. And it's driven towards the concept of whole learner. So not only academics, but other parts of learning that we tend to miss out upon because of the circumstances that we're in or because of the lack of support or resources that we have. So academics plus emotional well-being, physical health and fitness, and also values and behavior. So it's 4 areas of learning that we're targeting through the EdTech app. And right now we are providing this app to homeschooling families or families who are interested in supplemental learning for their learners. But we hope to branch it out towards educational institutes and other learning environments as well.
That's amazing. You know, I love the fact that you said that learning is just not about one component.
Yeah.
You know, education is not just one component. There's so many factors that influence education, how we learn. Everyone's different. Everyone has a different space that they travel by, their capacity to absorb information, the capacity to learn and retain the information. But our environment, as well as, you know, our home lives, affect our ability to learn and grow. Now, you mentioned there's other components to your program. And that's the part that I love. It's a whole package, they use the word holistic approach to learning. And I've never come across, an educational app that has that holistic view of helping a child learn. And I think in today's day, there's so many factors that influence, mental health capacity in people, in children especially,
yes,
and how that hinders their learning. So talk a bit more about, the mental health aspect of it. Why would anybody listening to this podcast today, any parent who has a child, why would they be interested in Daira?
Yeah, Doreen, I really like the word holistic that you've used. We also use holistic when, we speak to people and interested parties who ask about Daira. And you see, the thing is that when we think about learning for our kids, I'm a mom as well. I have two girls and a really proud mom. And my elder one is 13, younger one is 8. So I've got like Gen Z and Gen Alpha all under one roof. When I think about my girls' learning, I realize, and when I'm planning it as a learning provider, I feel that there are so many other things that I need to manage to get them to learn, right? I can't just connect them to a website or resources that are available online. And you're absolutely right. Like, there isn't a solution that brings all of this under one roof. There are resources available, all over the web, but the tools and resources that we have available are scattered. There's no one window solution. So when I manage the learning of my girls, I feel that there are so many other things that I need to target to bring them into that capacity to learn. I can't just connect them to a website or give them a worksheet and make them sit down. I have to make sure that they're feeling good mentally, physically, and also they have the right approach to learning. So you asked about mental well-being. So there are so many things that impact anybody's mental well-being. Like even as adults, if we're getting ready for a big day ahead, there are so many things that we bring into play, right? Like how are we feeling mentally about the day ahead? Do we feel nervous? Do we feel agitated about something? Do we feel anxious? Are there other things around our home environment that are triggering us? That's the case for learners as well. And we tend to often miss out on that because when we think about learning environments, we're so focused on only the academic element of it. We tend to disregard other things that might impact their learning ability, as you might say. So if a child is not feeling good on a certain day, like there's something that's triggering them, something that's making them angry, something that a parent maybe said the day before. If I talk about my girls, if I say something to my 13-year-old, an evening before, and she did not like it, like stuff happens, right? Like sometimes you do, as a family, you say stuff in the spur of the moment, in the heat of the moment, that you regret later. Maybe she disagrees with me on something. The next day, if I'm expecting her to learn at the same level or at the same capacity, there might be something that's hindering her. And quite often, it's her own thoughts, her own feelings that may be coming in the way.
Right.
And that is something that I feel that we do as adults. Like a lot of us, we learn the hard way and we know how to, focus on ourselves mentally and manage that. Like whenever I'm feeling agitated, I go for a run. But young learners, they don't know that yet. We have to teach them this.
Right.
And again, for a lot of parents, for a lot of learning providers, even if I talk about schools and bigger learning environments, the circumstances are such that they're just not able to do that. I'm able to do that with my girls, but what about parents and learning providers who work full-time or who work multiple jobs? Is it fair that for their learners, they just focus on things that they can manage? I mean, they're making choices as per their circumstances. And as an educator, as someone who's worked in learning, I just felt it's not fair for both learners and learning providers to be in such an environment. And that's where Daira came in. I wanted to develop something where learning becomes a choice that you make, like it's in your hands and your circumstances don't dictate whether you're able to target the mental well-being of your learner or not. You make that choice and you're able to do that with resources and tools that are readily available for you in the form of an app, if it may be that way.
So with this application, is your intent to have it just aside from the school system or to supplement what the kids are learning in school?
So right now, it's targeted towards homeschooling families or families that are experimenting with supplemental learning. So homeschooling families, they their children, the learners don't go to schools, right? But they have other activities as a part of their day. So right now in the app, we have the Ontario curriculum integrated, but we're looking into integrating more credible curriculum from Pearson, McGraw and Hill. We are in talks with other curriculum providers. So hopefully it will become a more feasible option for homeschooling families, but also for families whose learners are in a more hybrid setting. They are going to school, but once they come home, the families do want them to have a bit of supplemental learning as well, while not making it something that's too exhausting for their learners. So maybe they feel that, okay, the academic part is being handled by the school, but when our learners come back home, I want something to, to help them with their health and fitness, something that helps them unwind after, towards the end of the day, and something perhaps over the weekend that targets their values and behaviors. So, and again, with Daira, like they can choose we've got the timetable management aspect to it as well. So literally what a learning provider has to do is they can select learning areas. They can also select the days of the week that they want their learner to focus on different learning areas, and also the times. So we want to give them like entire control so that they're not micromanaging everything, because it's just not possible for a lot of learning providers to be able to do that given their circumstances. So it's for both, like supplemental learning as well. But at the same time, I'd like to add that as a founder of this, EdTech app, I feel it is definitely something that's applicable for larger educational environments as well. So schools, where you've got a very high student to teacher ratio. How does a learning provider over there ensure that the learners are able to take away learning from the classroom? It doesn't end there. They go back home if they've got a family that's going through certain challenges. How does the learning provider ensure that they're able to come back next day in the right frame of mind? So we feel that it is a solution that can that's scalable towards these larger learning environments as well.
Wow. So I guess from a child's perspective, do they look at it more as a fun thing to do? Like this is an app, it's like a game. They don't really look at it as, oh no, it's another book I've got to read, or it's school homework, or, how does this app change that for the child?
No, that's such a great question, because we are talking about, ease for learning providers, but the end recipient is the learner, right? If the learner is not gaining any benefit out of it, then we're not really achieving the purpose, right? So gamification was an important consideration for the app, because how do you engage learners regularly, right? But also I did not as a mother, and also as an educator and as someone who's worked in learning and development, I didn't want it to I didn't want it to be something that's so overbearing that the child has to be connected on that app throughout the day, which is why we've brought the timetable management element to it, right? So that the rest of the day, the learner can do other things that the learning provider plans for them. So the gaming aspect to it, and the way we have engaged, or we're aiming at engaging the learner, is through two features of the app. One is a leadership board. So with every task that they do on through the app, they get points for it. And if there are, for example, if parents are using it at home for 3 of their learners, they've got a nice leadership board where everybody's points are stacked up against each other. So it just gives them that small push to do better. And also the learning provider can give them extra points if they've done really well on a task as well. So just very simple gamification. Again, don't want it to become into, something that's like Minecraft or Roblox. We feel that a learner should also be unplugged to a certain extent, but something that helps, just gives that support to the learning provider, ensuring that those check boxes are met as a part of the, the whole learner development of their learners. And it's just a very simple way to engage the learner and kind of like, ensure that they do their tasks for the day.
The part that I like about it is it gives the parents like an advantage, or a little bit of an edge, to make sure that their child is getting everything that they can out of education. Because, let's be honest, you want your child to thrive. You want your child to get out into the world and become someone, or find their passion, or find where they want to go in their lives, and it's not easy. Parents today are coming home tired from work.
Yes.
There's more stresses in life, and then they got to work with their child, and parents are not equipped to handle some of the homework items that come from school. How do you help your child succeed when you yourself are not at that level?
Yeah.
So this is a great way to, it's like an added bonus for your child to say, I love my child and I want the best for my child, so I'm going to help them to succeed. We're not certified therapists. We're not, educators who know how to teach our children. So this application that you've developed is perfect for people who feel at a disadvantage. Like, how do I help my child the best way possible?
And the guilt that comes
and
with
the guilt,
this, Doreen.
yes.
We basically started working on this. Like, it was my brainchild, and then I kind of got my husband on board because he has more than 15 years of experience in business.
Okay.
And I've always worked in the corporate sector, right?
Mm-hmm.
So although education is something that I feel passionately about, launching it as a startup was something that was a new area for me. And that's why, and we're parents and we're very hands-on parents. We our parenting ideologies resonate a lot. So again, this passion project, I had been thinking about it, but got a chance to start thinking about it seriously. So we started working on it last year in May, June 2025. And that's when we basically started off with the idea validation phase. So we reached out into the market for research, and we started talking to other parents or caretakers or teachers, educators, learning providers, like we call them, that broad category under which anybody who is responsible for the learning of learners, they come under it. And we conducted a lot of focus groups, interviews, no surveys, because we felt that surveys didn't give us those kind of that kind of feedback, that kind of validation. Education is such a personal choice for anybody who's responsible for learning of learners. And it really stems from a very emotional place. Like you said, you want the best for your learners, right? You want them to succeed in everything that you dream for them,
Right.
that you didn't get,
Yes,
you
yes.
want them to go for everything that you didn't get in your past, and you want them to become the best versions of themselves. And every person we spoke to, they spoke so passionately about what they aspire their learners to do. But at the same time, they were very disheartened by the fact that there were certain circumstances, there were, some a support system that was missing. Like, everybody is at different stages in their lives. And a lot of the learning providers we spoke to, they had that wish list, but they just didn't have the right tools or the right resources to be able to achieve all of that for the learners. So they were always compromising, always
Right.
struggling. And that shouldn't be the case when it comes to learning, right? It's not only a right, but also, like, I feel we stop there, it's one of the sustainability development goals of UN, like fair education for everybody. But I feel that that's where we end it. That, okay, if the child is going to school, that's it. What about more than that? So these learning providers, they aspired for more for their learners. And I just felt that, as an educator, it's not fair to both learners and learning providers to not be able to be in a capacity to make that choice and to develop systems that help boost their learners in a very stress-free, guilt-free, efficient kind of way.
Yeah. So now, have you tested it out on your own children?
Yes.
Of course you have.
They've been my biggest feedback providers.
Okay. So I want to hear some feedback about, what they have experienced and what you have seen through their interaction with this EdTech application, as well as other people who you have, who had experienced this application. So what have you seen from your children, and what have you seen from others?
Yeah. So we have actually we haven't officially launched the app, but we had a soft test launch like in January. And this was after we Daira got accepted into a couple of accelerator programs. We got a boost. So we want to build, we got some traction. So we wanted to use that traction to get some immediate feedback so that we could implement it and just ease out all the, technical technical areas of the app, just work on product refinement and see how we could work on it more before the official launch. So my kids were the first. I mean, they have been a part of it even before I started developing the app. And so with my kids as well, and with, again, with most ideologies that people in this market, the users in this market, that they adopt with the learners, they do want a solution that provides ease of setting learning environments, but they don't want a solution that takes over the learner's time completely. Like, it shouldn't be. I know that there are a lot of edtech apps that have that really, really focus on that gaming element of it.
Right.
They've got these interactive games where where kids have these avatars, and then they interact in real time. They're building things. So while that is good, it shouldn't be, like, we felt from our research that it's not something that learning providers feel should be the focus of an edtech app. They wanted it not to be something that takes away, other time when they're able to interact with the learners. So with my kids as well, when I made them start using the app, I spaced it out. Like, I chose math and English as subjects that they could get, academic focus for, but I spaced it out. Like, for math, I chose 2 days a week in the afternoon. And for English, I chose like 1 day a week, 1 hour session on Tuesdays. And then I focused on other areas as well. Like, for me as a learning provider, I feel that physical health and fitness needs to be there every day. So like 15-minute workouts that I just put in the app, in the learning form that opens up whenever you're setting a learner. Then for emotional well-being, 15 minutes towards the end of the day, because that's when I felt my learners were very exhausted and overwhelmed from the whole day. So I felt like at that time they could just relax. And usually we spend weekends kind of like focusing on values. People from the community send their kids to Sunday schools, usually as families. Whether you're a part of the Muslim community or the Christian community, you take the weekend to focus on values that you believe in as a family. So for the weekend, we focused on only values and behaviors, the fourth component of learning. So when my kids started trying it out, I just felt that it took a load off my back, that I didn't need to pester them constantly, that, do your workout and focus on your, it's time to unplug now, take some time out to get your gratitude list going. So they were able to do this through the app, being engaged with it, but at the same time, not too engaged that it was taking away time from our conversations that we were having with each other. So it is a very efficient and easy to manage process. And one thing that you might notice is that what I was saying was that my learners, and I felt that, they were getting overstimulated towards the end of the day. That's the choice that Daira hopes to provide to learning providers. You know your learners best. You know how your day goes or how your family is functioning, whether you're from a family where the parents are separated, whether you've got different households, whether the kids are somewhere else. You decide for your learners what's best for them as per your timetable and as per their needs. So what I felt for my learners, I incorporated that. And, it's been great feedback. Of course, with other people we've tested it out with, they've had some feedback regarding the curriculum. They had some feedback regarding how they, they wanted more, variations in physical health and fitness. Like, one feedback that we got was from a couple of learning providers that they want a focus on nutrition in the app. And that is so important, right? Like, for learners to feel good when they're learning, if they don't eat well or the right things, how do you expect them to be fully
Right.
aware when they're focusing in academic subject?
Yeah.
So we are working on it round the
Perfect.
clock. Yeah.
Perfect. And nutrition, we may not think it's a component for education, but when I think of it now too, growing up, even culturally speaking, you eat certain types of meals because you're encouraged to eat them. And what happens when you grow up is you end up getting all sorts of health issues.
Yes.
Whether it's diabetes, I know in our community, diabetes
Yeah.
is it's like getting a
Cholesterol.
cold. So having that knowledge of nutrition, and then it's you look at the toll that it's taking on our health system in
Yes.
Canada. It kind of brings that down if the nutrition aspect of your child goes up, and we grow into healthier human beings.
Yes.
So that I love that part of it. The more I hear about Daira, the more impressed I am in terms of how essential it is.
Yeah.
Leave alone the benefit of what it's providing, but it's essential. When you talked a little bit about the emotional and mental health aspect of this application, and when I look around at a lot of what's coming out of the schools today,
Yes.
there's trouble.
Yes.
There's anxiety, there's loss of hope, there's bullying, it hurts me to think that you're sending your child to school for an education and they're coming back home with terrible consequences of what's happening in the school system. Now, maybe our school system needs to be overhauled a little bit, but that's, a bigger problem for a different day to discuss. But having this application, through Daira, it's going to give your child that outlet to release all of that baggage that they're coming home with and look at themselves as a human being who has potential, a human being who matters, a human being who has worth. And I think a lot of children today don't have that sense of worth and that sense of pride in who they are because they're just being kind of kept down, not intentionally by the system, but that's what's happening based on what's going on with the school system right now. So I'm glad that this application for Daira is providing that hope, is providing an outlet for kids to grow into something meaningful, and it's just it's like a snowball effect, right? Our environments, our communities become better.
Yes.
People become better, the country becomes better, and it's just,
it all
a
starts
domino
from
effect.
Self-awareness, I feel. And, again, you spoke about community, and a lot of things I feel that growing up, I did not understand about my body or my emotions or how to deal with them. And again, with learning, we only consider the academic part of it, but the rest of it is kind of like pushed to the side as supplemental, elements that you might look into if you have the time or if you have somebody who can guide you. You mentioned that, schools and what's coming out of schools and how, learners are feeling over there. A lot of what I hope comes out of Daira is self-awareness, which we all want our learners to get a grip on at a young age. We didn't get a chance to do that. I think I became self-aware at a very later stage after having 2 kids, going through medical complications. I have autoimmune condition, by the way, Hashimoto's. And, like how you said a snowball effect, one aspect of your physicality or your mental health, it kind of like impacts so many other areas of your life, right? And also, most importantly, learning. So that's what's happening to kids these days. And we hope that they become more self-aware and that will help them in managing themselves in a better manner, learning how to manage themselves. And that will in turn, support the community.
Absolutely.
And it's not like an overnight thing that can happen, but it needs to be, learning needs to have this focus. Education needs to have this whole learner focus from a very, very young age to plant the seeds there. And then hopefully these learners will grow up into self-aware, kind, empathetic leaders, I would say.
Leaders, yeah,
Not
that's
only for themselves,
essential.
but for the community as well.
Yes, definitely. And I think leadership is lacking today, and it's something that we need more of, both in the corporate world as well as in
So
in
true.
our social world, in our communities and everything. And having those proper leaders are going to make us, stronger people for it.
Yes.
Another aspect that I wanted to ask you about is culturally. You mentioned something about you only became self-aware after you became a mother, and after you had experienced certain things. So before that, you came from a different country. You have parents who have molded you and conditioned you into being or thinking a certain way. How would you explain to people who are watching this today that their culture is not going to be washed away through this? They're not going to be brainwashed. How is this application going to enhance that self-awareness part of their child?
I think if anything, this app will, I mean, it's, what it will enable anybody to do is understand that a, a culture is supposed to be something that they take pride in,
Mm-hmm.
not something that hinders their learning. Being self-aware of yourself and what your needs are and how to grow as a learner has very little connection to your cultural, it shouldn't be impacted by your
It
cultural
shouldn't.
background. It
Yes, it
shouldn't be.
shouldn't. Yes.
And you should become self-aware, and you should learn how to manage yourself. And of course, like with any culture, there are a lot of things that are passed down from generation to generation, but that doesn't mean that everything passed down is like, is like it's like
Yes.
great.
Or if it's even correct or
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
generations evolve.
Yes.
I'm a huge supporter of, cultural roots. I take pride in my cultural background,
Mhm.
but I know that what my parents did, I'm doing something different. And I also know that what I'm doing, my girls are going to be doing something entirely different. That's what I aspire for them. I do want them to be better versions.
Right.
I don't want them to be just like me. I
Mhm.
want them to be better. And that's what we should aspire for our future learners, to become better than
Better.
us. But what are we doing right now to enable that,
Yes.
right? That's the question we should be asking
Exactly.
ourselves.
No, I'm really glad because like I said, that it's a bigger problem, the school system the way it is, but to change it and to manage it is it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of work. But having an application like this is going to solve the problem in the meantime.
Yes.
There is a way out. There is something that you can use for your child to help them. I just love the whole the different components, as you mentioned earlier, as to how this is a holistic approach to learning and to help your child be better and get better. So when you look at yourself, back when Kanwal was a little girl growing up, and compared to where you are today, and what made you choose this journey? Why did you end up doing what you're doing today?
Wow. So I come from a family of girls.
Okay.
We're three sisters. And again, we're originally from Pakistan. And the cultural setup when we were growing up, it wasn't really, it wasn't that it wasn't that we weren't allowed to work. It was just that we were never motivated to work on something that drives us. Like we were just like it wasn't a big focus both at home or in the society. There was always talks about it, but you know how you push your kids. So there was a lot of focus on academics though. Had to get like straight A's in everything, just the highest CGPA, get the scholarships. And again, I felt that growing up, that element was missing. Anywho, I got into, university, got into the corporate sector. I don't know, by some stroke of luck, got into learning. And I had never planned on going into education or becoming an educator or a consultant who works in learning and development. It just happened, like how things happen just like that. And that's where I realized, okay, I love doing this. I love helping people learn and then helping them become better versions of themselves, whether it's university students, whether it's high school students, or whether it's professionals. Just helping them learn, being a learning provider. And from then on, I've worked on various projects with multinational corporations, central banks of countries. It's only recently, and since COVID, I don't know. I just thought, and especially I mentioned, like after having two kids, I went through my own medical issues, and I felt that okay, so I do work on the academic part of learning, but I do encounter learners in my classroom and in the training room who, no matter what I do or what kind of content I create, they are just not, in that frame of mind to learn. And instead of blaming the learners, I took another look at it. I was like, okay, what is it that I'm not doing, or what is it that I can do? And that's where, I don't know, that kind of like planted the seeds of, how learning is not only academics and academic content only. There must be more that can be done about
Yeah.
it. And I felt that, and I did pitch this idea to companies that I worked with. But again, I feel that when you've got a unique idea, when you feel so passionately about something, sometimes the best person that you can partner up with is yourself.
True.
So
Yes.
I felt that this is a step that I needed to take.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of bravery. There's a lot of imposter syndrome that comes into place. But when you look at what you've created, when I look at the app, when my kids use it, I feel so proud. And that's what I keep reminding myself, that this is my baby, my
Yes.
third baby. And now I get to call it my own. And now I get to introduce it to so many other people. And it's for the greater good.
Yes.
So it is a business, but I'm hoping it to be a business that creates impact, an app that creates impact.
Yeah.
And that's what led me on this journey. And that's what keeps me pushing forward.
Yeah. Well, I definitely see your passion
Yeah.
for what you're doing. And I think without passion, it just wouldn't be, So I'm glad that you're passionate about it. And I know that this is going to be a huge success. I can't wait for it to be finally launched and for people to be actively using it to see the benefit and to watch their child blossom and bloom into something that they never imagined. And I think that's something we all want as parents, is that for our children,
Yes.
and it's just a beautiful thing. So I'm so glad we were able to hear your story today. I'm so glad that you shared your passion with us and where this application is going to go. It's been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to hear more about Daira and where it's going to go. So, Kanwal, thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for coming
much.
in today. And we look forward to more of Daira.
Yeah, thank you so much.